So welcome back, part two. We kind of ended on we'd actually finally got round talking about David Lee Roth,
Sure.
um, and how you you spoke to everybody and some people were are sick of the sight of you and the story of the radio show Rise and Fall and everything. So
Yeah.
but we didn't really get into it. So who hates you?
Who hates me besides David Lee Roth and his team?
Well, is hate a strong word, or is your name mud around the Roth office?
I think it is because I'll put it to you this way. Let's say you really loved a magician like Chris Angel.
Right.
Uh, and if you do, no offense intended. I laugh at Chris Angel. I do a Chris Angel impression when I've had 8 drinks. But anyway, if you wanted to know how Chris Angel did all the tricks, and you were sneaking around and go, hey, so tell me how he does those tricks. Eventually, you're either going to come across as a stalker or a smart, motivated person that they go, maybe this person has a wonderful skill set. In the world of Dave, like the people that kind of are kept around are people that know everything or people that know nothing. It's kind of one or the other. And I approached him very, very, very kindly, very nicely. I think my first email to his team, because Dave, from what I've heard reliably, there's a lot of things that I'll say, and stop me when this gets too long winded, Howard. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. There's a lot of people around Dave who've told me stuff. There's a lot of people who used to be around Dave who've told me stuff. And I can't always reveal the source, but I could say it's a person that worked with him in the 80s. It's a person who worked with him in the last 10 years. Once I get sued, I'll have to disclose that, but hopefully that never happens. So anyway,
So
going
so
back here.
you could basically you can attribute quotes to a source that worked with Roth at this particular time, and leave
Yeah,
it woolly enough so the Roth
I'm a
camp don't know who it
licensed
is. Basically, it's kind of information, it's kind of disinformation, isn't it? You're giving enough information to say, hey, look, this is a credible source, but also not enough information whereby that source is going to be pursued.
sure. Well, I'm a licensed investigator, which basically means taking a lot of oaths as a
Wow.
licensed PI. So, in other words, if you want to attack my credibility, I dare you.
Yeah.
Like I have skeletons in the closet like everybody, but I'm a fact-oriented professional. This book was a combination of interviews I did, on the record interviews that were done, public records, government records, all that kind of stuff. So I don't call it like muckraking and like going through the garbage bins. I did my research. If I couldn't verify something, or the source, I would not put it in the book. So that said, people have told me that Dave is not on email and Dave doesn't have a cell phone. And there's one person who's kind of his gatekeeper beyond any assistants that come in and out, and he trusts
Yeah.
that person. And so when you send a message to her, you don't necessarily know that it went to Dave, which is a weird, weird thing in artist management because a huge artist, and I think Dave is a huge, huge artist, to say the least, should have that big picture person. Then they should have a day to day person, the person who's setting up the interviews and keeping track of the deadlines and talking with the crew and is the middle person to it all. Dave does not seem to have that. So I'm assuming all of my requests got to him. And the first one was basically saying, like, I'm writing a book, I'd like to speak to you. And then I didn't hear back. And I think my second one was going, by the way, you can have creative control. If you don't want to be involved and you want to read it and tell me everything that's wrong, fine. No response. I think I sent another general one. And then I sent one more that went, by the way, I've been searching government databases and you have all these unclaimed checks sitting with the state of California and all these checks sitting with the state of New York. Here they are. I don't want anything. Free money. Go get it. No response. So,
Right. Okay. So
yeah.
the weird thing about Dave, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like It's almost like he's got a like Hollywood stars have sometimes a personal advisor who basically makes personal decisions for their client. Do you know what
He's
I mean?
had,
As opposed
yeah,
to a manager, it's something that is a lot
great.
closer and a lot more intimate and frankly a lot weirder. And there you go.
Yeah, good observation. Now, when he left Van Halen and Pete Angelus was his right hand man, of course they were not on equal footing, but he was listening to Pete Angelus like a manager and looking at the success that Pete Angelus has had in the decades since with the Black Crowes and other bands. Obviously, Pete Angelus knows what he's doing, and that's somebody that you would listen to. And then when Pete was gone and Eddie Anderson kind of went from being security guard to assistant to manager, like he was good for Dave. Supposedly he's the most loyal employee Dave has ever had until they had some beef at the end, which people have written about. And then the next person was pretty much an assistant. And then the next person was his bass tech turned assistant turned manager. And then once that person has manager's control, Dave is great. Dave makes great decisions when he has a manager involved. Like he doesn't listen to his manager 80%, 60%, 40% of the time, but they're able to stop disasters before they happen. His current situation is there's a lady who has never gotten back to me. I've heard she's a sweet, smart person. She's in some of the videos that have been posted in recent years, but she's like his accountant, manager, handler, travel partner, etc. And kind of like how Axl Rose has Beta, who's like a housekeeper turned maternal figure turned manager slash everything. Dave has one of those. And I don't think his manager lives with him like Axl's people have lived with him, but I think that that's a mistake
Yeah.
because you have a non music industry manager managing you.
Yeah, it's also kind of a weird existence as well, not just from a business point of view. It's just fucking weird, It's
Totally.
yeah, it's like get some perspective, Yeah, you have a life. If you want to have a PA, have a PA, but don't give that PA the keys to the fucking kingdom. And especially when
Yeah.
they've only ever been a PA, you have to have somebody who looks after the business that you have a business relationship with, and that's that. And then you can have that other person if you need that, if your ego needs that, if your lifestyle needs that, whatever works for you. That's I can't imagine what life is like for Dave. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's always dangerous giving anybody all of the responsibility, all of the decisions to make, because A, nobody's that good, and B, very few people are that trustworthy. And even if they are, they're still not that good. So they're going to honestly fuck up and they're going to honestly make
Yeah.
mistakes.
I look at some of the biggest figures in rock have basically had that period where they were doing amazing, then they fell off, and then they rebuilt. And Kiss is one example of that, where Kiss was dead in the water,
Big
in the
shame. Big
day.
shame. Why couldn't they fucking stay dead? Jesus Christ.
But then you look at the reinvention that Doc McGee made happen in the mid 90s.
Never forgiven.
And you go, okay, so that guy knows a thing or two about marketing. And you look at Buck Cherry's a band, they were dead in the water. And then 10th Street Entertainment brought them out of the dead, just like they did Motley Crue. Motley Crue was totally a joke again in the late 90s. I remember there was a tour that was Motley Crue, Megadeth, and the opener was Anthrax. And it was doing so poorly, they had to cut costs and they sent Anthrax home. Can you imagine?
Mate, can you please mention a band that's come back that shouldn't have stayed dead? Because so far that's three bands who I would have
Okay.
gladly
Cheap
seen stay
Trick.
dead.
Cheap Trick has had an amazing revitalization.
Yeah, that's that, and that's earned. That's earned.
That's largely red light management being geniuses. I think the way that Van Halen was brought back due to Irving Azoff's team in '07, around that, the launch was genius, and then eventually dissipated the more Dave had a say or had control, or they'd stop doing interviews or that kind of a thing. I think that whether or not you like these managers, they know what they're doing. And people go, oh, they shouldn't be taking 10 or 15% commission. They're making their money out of the extra money they're making you.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point. It's the same as, I think we touched on this before, as you know, with sports agents and things like that. It's like, well, yeah, you know, maybe guitarists aren't the best people to negotiate recording deals, you know,
Right.
and maybe the guy who is negotiating it isn't going to do it for free, and he'd like a percentage. And
Yeah.
surely he wants as big a percentage as possible, so he's going to negotiate as big a fee as possible. So you're like,
Right.
who's losing here?
Yeah. Aerosmith is another band, dead in the water in the early 80s. And Tim Collins revitalized them for better and for worse by using the song doctors, the co-writers and all that kind of stuff. But I think that David Lee Roth, he had a chance when he lost the Warner Brothers deal after Your Filthy Little Mouth. He had a chance to just go to whether it's a Doc McGee or an Irving Azoff or one of those people and go, okay, what do I have to do? And the reason I say this is because David Lee Roth's around the same age as Aerosmith. We still think that Aerosmith is cool to some extent. The Scorpions are much older than Dave. The Scorpions are somehow still cool. And
Yeah,
a genius thing that the Scorpions did, and a few bands from that era did, was they went to the third world countries. Or in other words, when grunge was happening, they stopped going, hey, how do we milk the US and UK and Japan? They went, what's the rock scene like in the Philippines? What's it like in Greece? What's it like in the Middle East? And they
yeah,
did that and crushed it. Def Leppard, same exact thing. No one wanted Def Leppard around slang, and they went to the third world markets and the underdeveloped rock markets. You're starting to see Def Leppard in Korea in the late 90s before it became a real rock market.
yeah.
So undoubtedly Dave had offers from everywhere. He just probably went, nah, I'd rather go rock climbing. Nah, I'll wait for the big money thing. Now I'll do this, which is surprising because he's known to be a guy who likes to travel and do weird stuff.
Yeah, but has he ever really toured? Um, I don't know, and maybe I don't know my stuff, and you can correct me, but you know, he doesn't seem Mr. 180 shows a year pushing an album guy. He hasn't been that guy for many, many, many years, and I think the fact that, you know, Vegas residency says maybe he doesn't like traveling anymore.
Older Dave, when he left Van Halen, I think it was the Spin magazine interview where he talked about one of his points of dissension with Van Halen was that they didn't want to do longer tours, that they just wanted to do stadium shows and more people come to the one show than doing 3 nights at whatever venue, that they may not make as much money if they play in this country. He talked in that article about wanting to see the world, wanting to do more, etc.
Right.
And Van Halen did do South America in, I think, 83. And I don't think that they didn't go back with Dave on any of the reunion tours. I don't think they did Europe on the reunion tours. It was just US, Canada, Japan, Australia on one of the runs.
That now you've hit on something that's interesting there, because I'm pretty, you know, you were talking about the book and people you've spoken to. Um, I would have thought that there's quite a lot of material to come out of the reunion. I mean, just the fact that, you know, um, someone different is on base to start with. You know, you kind of feel as an outsider that that was Eddie saying, well, like it's two of us or none of us. So,
Yeah,
you know, take it or leave it.
totally. Wolfgang, I was promised an interview with. And then once I said the words David Lee Roth book, they'd be like, oh, yeah, he's not doing press. You go, but I just saw him on CNN. Oh, yeah, we don't know. He's not doing press. And I went back and forth with that publicist who I legitimately thought was a friend of mine. And every time, oh no, Wolfie's not doing press. You're like, but he was just on Howard Stern.
Yeah.
And publicists can, some publicists that I feature in this book, Mitch Schneider is a friend. He's a friend. We do dinner, we text. I asked him for some career advice. He spent an hour on the phone with me a couple of weeks ago, and he goes, "You should do this, 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 and this." He's a friend. He's not just a person where you go, "I'd like to interview this person." Okay, here's the article, and he's a friend. Some publicists, if you stick around and you do enough articles, they become friends and dependent people, and you send bereavement cards and you exchange holiday cards. And then there's other publicists who go, "You're a music person, you're in this box, I want nothing to do with you, I owe
Yeah.
you no truth ever." And then the people who know them outside that box go, "Oh, what a nice person, they volunteer 80 hours a week." So they have the publicist life and then normal life. And so I've been fortunate to cross the line with a lot of publicists where you like every now and then you get drinks, or you kick business with to them and all that. This Wolfie publicist, oh my, oh my God. So that one didn't happen. Then also the Van Halens and Dave have so many people under non-disclosures. So that's another thing going on. Then everything related to Azoff is super tied down and quiet. So after I wrote the book, somebody emerged who's become a friend who's like, "Oh yeah, what do you want to know?" And I asked him all this stuff, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that tour was tough." And basically, Dave was traveling separate from the Van Halens for starters.
Yeah.
Uh,
Big
Dave
surprise.
changed management in the middle of all the reunion tours.
Oh God.
Yeah, it
Right. So he wasn't getting his own way, blamed his manager. I'll get a new one. Fire the manager, get the new manager. New manager still can't get your way, Dave, because you're being unreasonable, for fuck's sake. Doesn't matter how many managers you change.
most likely it was along those lines. I couldn't fully confirm. Like my
Yeah.
source is more happy to just like when we get on the phone, you could just say stapler, and you're like, "Oh, so this one time Dave saw a stapler." Like he has a story about every single. You'll be like, paper clips. Oh, paper clips. One time Dave goes into Staples. Everybody has all these stories, but this book was trying to, as best as I could, put it into one place and then not tell the same stories that keep getting put over and over and over again. Because there's been like 8 books about Eddie in the last 8 years and zero about Dave.
Yeah.
So I still think that we don't know the full story on a lot of things. And part of what we're waiting for is other people who are under and can't speak today. Other people are under NDAs to just go, I don't care anymore. I'll talk. Because
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I've heard like off the record, but in person from the source stories from people. And like all these people will think that Dave is 100% with it and is this smart, detail-oriented guy who's playing chess. And everything they tell me says this is a smart person who's out of his mind, paranoid, who doesn't finish anything that he starts,
Yeah.
who doesn't have a great memory.
Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't finish anything that he starts. I mean, well, that's obvious to anybody who's followed Dave's career for the last sort of 10 years, you know.
Yeah, all these social media postings that are things from 10 to 20 years ago, and they don't have the hashtag TBT or the hashtag throwback, then all these Van Halen re-records that randomly get deleted at times with no notice. And then parts of his catalog are missing. So, people will be critics of me and go like, "Oh, this guy hates Dave," or they'll say, "Oh, this guy, he's so impartial. Dave knows what he's doing." No, he doesn't. When the people who've worked with him in the last 10 years tell you things, this is a person who is spending too much time alone in their head.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
the thing is, as well, is that anybody of Dave's age, I'm in my 50s. You no, you are not smart anymore. And even the smartest people of Dave's age you cannot keep up with the way the world and the music business works now. So,
Right.
you can be as smart a cookie as you like, but age gets us all in the end. Father Time is undefeated, and
Totally.
ultimately you need help. And from what I can gather as well, I mean, you said earlier that you're a licensed PI, which is an ultimate statement for a journalist. uh,
Yeah, I mean, if I use my powers for bad, like, sorry to interrupt you.
that's
Are you a
right.
fan of the movie Goodfellas, like our friend
Oh, of
DX?
course. Yes.
So there's that guy who, when they're arresting Ray Liotta's character, who like, don't move, asshole, like that kind of a thing. I'll blow
Yeah.
your head off. That guy is a former NYPD guy who has propelled his way in the PI world to having this PI firm, and he's on Fox News all the time. And that guy is not a PI. He doesn't go into the field. The way
Yeah.
his firm operates is totally ass backwards, where everybody has to be in the office or they're not working. So you have good PIs and you have bad PIs, but go on.
Yeah. No. The thing is that it's the whole thing about age coming to us all. It doesn't matter how smart you are. You need somebody to be in your corner and fighting your corner. And my observations, like, certainly over the last 10 years, is that Roth's all over the place. You see bits, you see like almost clickbait statements come out, and you think, really? And then it's like, oh yeah, David Lee Roth said he's going to be doing this, 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 and this, and you go, oh, that's quite interesting, and you never hear another thing about it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like somebody who likes to try and remain relevant, and likes to at least be in the public eye or be in the press. um he likes that more than actually doing the thing. He likes the announcement of the thing more than doing the thing, so all we ever get is
You
the announcement.
are 100% correct. People who've worked with him told me about that. When the Vegas residency was canceled,
Big
he
shock.
wasn't. He was not bummed. I'll put it to you that way. He
Yeah.
liked talking about that he was doing it and the retirement process, but once it was canceled, it's like, whew.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, we saw him on that. We saw him on the on the farewell tour, on the comeback tour, whatever you want to call it. And some of it was kind of look away awful for me. And the thought of that guy in a Vegas setting, which is, you can't fake it there. That's the biggest living room in
No,
the
I'm going to
world.
disagree with you right there.
Okay, yeah.
How
I,
much Vegas, and I'm not
yeah.
being condescending here, because I fell in and out of love with Vegas like 6 times. My wife and I got married in Vegas, and I used to go there a lot. And then I had to make some lifestyle changes so that I don't go to Las Vegas and don't screw up my life. So I'm curious what your perspective on Vegas is, what your experience is.
No, you've made a very good point. I've kind of got this kind of rose tinted view of Vegas residencies, where it's like it's raw vocals, it's people out there. There's no
Okay, no,
cheating. You've got to,
not
you've got to deliver every night, and yeah,
Not at all. There's
yeah,
basically, to super generalize here, because I don't assume that the average person who reads this book spends a lot of time in Las Vegas and almost ruins their life like I did. Uh, Las Vegas, there's kind of 3 or 4 levels to it. And the first level, the top tier, would be what Adele is doing with her residency, what kind of Katy Perry was doing with her residency, Bruno Mars. You get what I'm saying. The A-list, like,
yeah,
blockbuster kind of show.
yeah.
And
Celine Dion back in the day.
totally, I would say that that's probably your second level, which is that the old guard. Shania Twain kind of evolved into the old guard just because of her age and who's spending the money on it, but it was still an extravagant show. And then the next level down is when you have somebody like Santana calling it a residency just because he's playing 6 shows at the same venue in a 40-day period.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so this venue that Roth was playing at is the Santana venue, and it's a 1,500-ish, half standing room, half seated, high-end club that's serving buffalo wings and like fatty American food and drink, with bathroom attendants. It's expensive, but not classy, but wants you to think that it's classy, but it's a
Yeah.
chain restaurant. Who founded House of Blues? Dan Aykroyd and Jim Belushi. Not John Belushi, Jim Belushi, the lesser Belushi. If you're talking about Belushis here, the
Yeah.
half brother Belushi, the nepotism Belushi. Okay, so it's a corporate chain in the middle of a casino. So it's not the 10,000 cap arena, which that same hotel also has a 10,000-ish cap arena where Dave did 2 corporate gigs at in 2023. So that
Right.
particular hotel has, I think, the Michael Jackson show. They have an arena. They have the House of Blues. So there's like 4 or 5 performance spots in this one hotel. So that means Vegas can go as high end or as low end. But one more thing. Sorry, Howard.
No, go for it.
A lot of people say they're playing in Vegas, but they're not playing in Vegas. They're playing 30 minutes outside of Vegas.
Right. Okay. So they're playing in the
Or
state of Las Vegas. They're not playing
the,
in the city of Las Vegas.
the metro area, or there's a second strip. When we think of Vegas, we think of the strip, which is, the MGM Grand and
Yeah.
the main
Caesar's
hotel.
Palace, etc.
Exactly. Well, there's the old strip, the original strip, which you still see in a bunch of movies, where Blue Oyster Cult would play there. Vince Neil would play a free concert on the street, the lower end. So a lot of times people go, we're doing a Vegas residency, but it's a 200 cap room.
Right. Yeah.
So Dave could do any of those.
Yeah. Yeah. And something you said there. So Dave did 2 gigs last year. I presume they were his only gigs, and they were corporate gigs in Las Vegas.
They were corporate gigs inside Mandalay Bay Hotel, where he just did 3 songs or so, where he did "You Really Got Me," "Panama," and "Jump," with a backing all-star band that included Steve Stevens. And do you know about these all-star corporate bands? This is probably an American thing.
I think it is an American thing. Yeah.
It all kind of, from what I understand, started from this group called Camp Freddy that went from being like a residency band to a band that did private parties. And I think Dave Navarro was in it, Billy Duffy from the Cult, um, another Jane's Addiction person, maybe Chris Chaney. I think Matt Sorum was in it. Then at a certain point, Camp Freddy split up into a second band, I believe. Then called the Shrinky Dinks or some weird name and it
Right.
had Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray all of a sudden.
Oh, fuck me. It's suddenly gone downhill very fast.
But wait, there's more. Then,
Or less, depending on how you look at it.
but wait, there's less. Then that split off into another thing with Matt Sorum called Kings of Chaos. And the
Right.
Matt
Yeah.
Sorum one is usually the best lineup of it all because it's Matt Sorum and whoever he feels is available. So it might be Billy Gibbons, it might be Billy Duffy, Robin Zander from Cheap Trick. One time I saw it, it had Chester Bennington from Linkin Park, Robert DeLeo from Stone Temple Pilots. Pretty good, fun lineup.
Yeah.
At a certain point, Steve Stevens, who's been in some of these, probably went, I could do this crap too. So he formed one, and Dave was part of 2 of these. So in other
Right.
words, you go to this and it's a corporate gig. One of these was for Home Depot, and the other was for Oracle or Adobe, like one of the tech companies.
Right. So Steve Stevens basically gets a couple of gigs. He rings Roth's agent and says, "Does Dave want to come along, sing 3 songs, going to pay him a bunch of money. He wants to come out in Vegas. He can come out, spend a week out here, comped, or he can come on the day. We'll fly him here, we'll fly him back.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And like, take it or leave it. Is it a yes? Is it a no? Let me know in a week, because if it's a no, I've got so and so and so and so and so, and just
So,
nice and simple, I
so,
would imagine.
so these concerts are hilarious because
I
they're
bet.
not supposed to post video of it. If you
Yeah.
attend, there's usually signs of
Oh
it.
God, yeah. Well, yeah. There's no videos of Metallica playing Salesforce uh
Yeah.
company event anywhere. You know.
So you see the same people on all these shows. So usually it's Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray is on there, DMC from Run DMC, and whatever rock singer could do the Steven Tyler part of Walk This Way comes out
Right.
for that song.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see which artists we think are has-beens, quote unquote, yet are making more money in their career than they've ever made.
Yes. Yeah. And they're making it in secret without desecrating their image.
To an audience that is psyched to see them, that
Yeah.
only wants to see him play 10 minutes. So Dave did those two gigs. And then through the book, I accidentally unveiled that Dave played a 50th birthday party for a PayPal co founder in Mexico. And I totally an accident in talking
Wow.
to somebody who was bragging about how awesome his life was. He goes like, "Oh, I do awesome things all the time. I went to my buddy's 50th birthday party and blank, blank, blank." And I was thinking, wait, 50th birthday? I know that person was just in Cabo. That person doesn't vacation. So he's talking about this 50th birthday party. He's like, and Coolio played there, and Cardi B played there, and all these great artists. So my mind went like that, and I went, "Did David Lee Roth play that?" And he goes, "I can't say." And then I found out to go to this 50th birthday party, every attendee had to sign a non-disclosure that they went to the party.
Oh, this is Epstein territory. Let's be honest. This is
And
By the Epstein levels of NDA, etc. I should say.
yeah, the reason I make up and I bring up the NDAs is like, why would you make anyone sign an NDA if you weren't doing anything nefarious or you weren't thin skinned?
Yeah.
I don't like, I have skeletons in the closet. I've screwed up a lot of times, and I'll tell you I screwed up a lot of times, but I'm not making anyone sign an NDA.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, who doesn't trust themselves that much that you have to have
Yeah.
everybody around you like locked up so they can never say anything about you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just so weird that uh with Vegas that like it didn't happen and those gigs that got canceled and he said those are his last ever gigs and he's retiring and he never really apologizes to his fans and he never says, "Hey, for all of you who actually traveled here and took a vacation that turned out to not be a vacation and spent the thousands of dollars, I'm sorry, I'll make it up to you. Here's a free blank." Never did that. But then he plays two corporate gigs in the same hotel and doesn't think we're ever going to hear about it.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't think we have really heard about it. I mean, it didn't hit, it certainly didn't hit the rock or metal news wires.
Oh,
Um,
it did.
oh, did
Um,
it? Did I just like that
yeah,
sailed past me?
the Cabo thing never hit the news wires. That was more like some people I'm friends with on Facebook put up Cabo vacation photos, and again, connected in that. I was interviewing a famous poker player because of an energy drink where they wanted me to plug it. And I connected that. So that never got out aside from my book. But the corporate gigs made Blabbermouth, Brave News,
Right.
etc.
Okay. So yeah, there's without a doubt, there's an element of yeah, hey, you guys who all got let down after booking to go and see him, and here he is, this so-called retired artist.
The retired artist is playing corporate gigs, painting, podcasting, putting out re-records with a band from a couple months after that, and then also putting out unreleased John 5 songs all the time. He's retired.
I'm also the weird thing is, right, I will listen to any podcast, but I haven't even been tempted to listen to Dave's because unfortunately for me, Dave disappeared into a bit of a sort of babbling abyss of his own nonsense quite a
Yeah,
few years ago, and I kind of I don't want to listen because I don't want it to be how what I think it's going to be.
it's not just like haha, this guy talks too much. It is mental illness. It
Yeah,
is
that's what I was afraid of. Yeah,
it it is that. Like, okay, go ahead and sue me for saying Dave has mental illness. People told me what he has. Like, he's not well, but then again, that's where a lot of the genius comes from. People with mental illness, I'm not calling myself a genius. You know, like I have mental illness. Just about everybody does, but he has
Yeah.
excessive mental illness.
Well, also the thing is that all of us, with conditions, mine's ADHD, we've all got something. Well, not all of us, but a lot of us. But
Most of us.
but the thing is that for somebody like that, well, age um only makes whatever you have worse. I mean, I didn't even
Totally.
get diagnosed till I was 49, but I knew something was wrong somewhere, and I had to get sorted. And I've got old age to look forward to, as my ADHD continues to get stronger and my ability to cope with it gets weaker, no matter what medication you're on. The
Sure.
brain is like any other muscle, and it's not going to be as flexible at 80 as it was when you were fucking 30 or 40. And that's just life. Um, but yeah, so he's always been a bit of an out there character. He's always been that guy that you could swear was stoned, but he's not. And that's getting into his old age. Whatever conditions he has, either diagnosed or undiagnosed, are only going to get worse, unfortunately. And that joy comes to us all.
What he talks about in his book, pretty early into his autobiography from the late '90s, is that weed brings him down and makes him more normal. And I've heard people who've worked around him say that they're like, without that, he's a raging, angry person.
Dude,
And
you're talking to somebody who smoked weed for 25 years to take the edge off and never wondered why the edge needed taking off. And that's how I ended up with an ADHD diagnosis, you know?
uh, it is very possible that that's what happened there. But I tried to, despite all the like quote honesty that I'm saying right now, like after I wrote this book, which I think is almost entirely positive, aside from like calling him out for maybe lying or exaggerating or getting his dates and times wrong, but then saying he has a steel trap memory. Aside from that, I think it's a really empathetic, positive book. But after I wrote this book, and I don't know if I told you this, every Dave person from the woodwork possible came out and started feeding me all their negative stories. And it's become so hard to love Dave these days because you hear about all the illogical, paranoid things that are going on, that basically every basic rumor that you've ever heard is true according to people who were in the room. But at the same time, I think he is incredibly, incredibly smart and motivated when he wants to be. If he picks those 3 or 4 things he wants to focus on, he is going to finish them, and he's going to finish them in world record time. The
Yeah.
question is, are any of those things projects that are meant for the public's consumption? That's always a big question.
Yeah, and also the fact that his inability to finish anything anymore. By the way, classic ADHD. Start a load of stuff and then never finish it. Um, but the thing is, I also feel like Dave is really struggling, and I feel like such a fucking idiot, kind of like, my pod
Go on.
philosophy that I'm somehow diagnosing Dave Lee Roth with ADHD. But he is, I reckon, he's really struggling with his lack of relevance, his
Yes.
lack of he's not a star anymore. And unfortunately, the only place he is a star is in the mirror, is in his own head. And yeah, I think that's a massive struggle for him.
I I think it's not over for him if he was willing to listen to people who knew better than him, who weren't just going to yes him or do the bare minimum so that they wouldn't get fired because it's a great paycheck. So let's say he got a manager who knew what they were doing, a record producer who knew what they were doing. Are you up on Andrew Watt, this record producer in his early 30s who's from here on Long Island?
Name rings a bell. But I'm not sure why.
he did the new Stones album. He did the last two Ozzy albums. Is basically,
Ah, right. Yeah.
whether or not you like these albums,
Yeah.
he's somehow able to work with these older people who know better, but talk through the process almost like a Richard Simmons.
He's a,
Uh,
he's a Rick Rubin, like Rick Rubin did with
yes,
Johnny Cash and Neil Diamond. It's
Neil
like
Diamond
he's
and Donovan, and yeah.
yeah.
So he's that for now. Only he actually does stuff, because it's come out that Rick Rubin doesn't really know how to do stuff. He just has a good ear and goes, "That's a hit. That's not a hit. Come back to me tomorrow with 10 more songs." That's kind of Rick Rubin. He's not in the studio with you. Andrew
Yeah.
Watt is in the studio with you. So I think if he got an Andrew Watt or Matthew Coma is another guy here from Long Island. His wife is the actress Hilary Duff. He produced Shania Twain. If you got somebody like that, the young person that goes, "Listen, Dave, this is what you need." I know that was state of the art in 78 and 85. I know you sold 60 million. Yeah, Dave, I know. But listen to me. Dave, stop.
Yeah.
Dave.
What have you done? It's like the old Eddie Murphy stand-up bit, isn't it? Yeah, 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 yeah. But what have you done lately?
And I
Yeah, I know you've
understand
done all of that, but what have you done lately?
I understand how big his success was, that he could live off of that money for the rest of his life. The amount that comes in every year, I get
Yeah.
that. And for most people, that would be enough. But Dave's whole thing, a little ain't enough. It's not a joke. He loves to do things in a big way. So if he got a manager that he listened to, a producer who knew, okay, so he can really sing in this range. Maybe we do this kind of an album to suit that whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay, we can do, Dave, where are you comfortable playing live? Okay, okay, we can build a show around that. And if they do a show where they get, Vi and Bissonette or whatever to come out for one song, we're not talking about a whole 70-minute set. Just get them to come out for one song. Get Michael Anthony to come out for one song. It would set the world on fire.
Yeah, I think the Dave Lee Roth Lounge album, get a lounge band together and
Sure.
because like he could sell that shit, he really could. Um uh and he's always also even if you just brought him back doing like a bunch of covers but putting the Roth spin on them because he's always had covers on his solo stuff, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and you could get a producer to just hand pick a bunch of tunes. Hey Dave, do you want to literally go through like 80 songs? Do you want to do this? No. Do you want to do this? No. Do you want to do this? No. Do you want yeah, oh yeah. Right. Okay. Do you want to do this? No. No, no, but you'd get like 8 or 10 songs that like you could infuse him about working on. Go on, give him let's sit down and let's Dave them up, and let and get that sparkle back in his eye. And Diamond Dave, just diamond the fuck out of these old classics, update
Okay.
them, get some guests in, put a rapper on one of the songs,
Yes.
whatever you need to do. But if you want the spotlight, you've got to be relevant. And if you've got to be, and being relevant means you've got to put in some work. You've got to finish something.
So let's say he goes, you know what, my voice is shot. I don't really want to do that kind of thing. He could then go, I'm going to do the Roth show 4 days a week, a 25-minute show, and have a producer that lets me that can cut me off, that's able to stop me mid rant, that's able to control the content, that's working the video screen.
Oh, right. For the podcast, you mean?
Yeah, if
Yeah.
he did that and the occasional appearance as a talking head on a Fox News or as a correspondent on a late night show, and then put out his second book, because his book, which is about, it's mostly really about Van Halen. The book was written and came out in 97. So, which means it's really written in 95, 96. So you're like, 25 years of stuff has happened to you since then.
Yeah.
Plus, you have,
Including more Van Halen.
yes, you have 2 or 3 books right there. You
Yeah.
have a podcast that is well produced aside from your crazy babbling.
Do you know
Y
what? Do you know what I've just thought? Do you know what I just thought?
Yeah.
How the fuck do we live in a universe where there's a Netflix movie about the story of Motley Crue and no one's done anything about Van Halen?
You have to wonder who blocked that.
Do
When
you,
you hear
I mean,
all these
like,
Yeah,
there's, I mean, you've got basically one of the greatest guitars in rock and metal that's ever existed.
yeah,
Um, one of the greatest frontmen, almost like the Freddie Mercury of rock and metal. Except
mhm,
without the voice, but so much personality, it almost doesn't matter. You
yeah,
know, amazing harmonies all over the place, a wonderful rhythm section. But not only that, but like everything the band did, and then there's the Sammy Hagar years, and
yeah.
then there's the get the band back together years. I mean, this isn't a movie. This is like a trilogy of movies.
It's a
It's almost, yeah,
trilogy, it's a 10-episode limited
yeah,
series.
yeah. Disney did the
Yeah,
Sex Pistols series. Sex Pistols put out one fucking album.
yeah,
Come on,
yeah,
it's ridiculous. And I'm
Elton
I'm
got
not
his
even that bothered about Van Halen, but I'm getting excited about the prospect of like, yeah, mate, there's more than a movie, isn't there?
Yeah, it really checks a lot of the boxes because a lot of times younger people who are more liberal will complain like, "Oh, it's just white people in this. It's all white people." Nope, you had mixed race members in Van Halen, jackpot, and you had a Jewish member, jackpot.
There you go.
You had a diversity behind the scenes and
And
around Van
what
Halen.
also, and one of them's dead. So, it's not cool to be angry about, people who are not alive.
It
Yeah.
is. There's so many damn wasted opportunities that Van Halen are missing out on. And I believe we were talking about the t-shirts that are not widely available yet. Iggy Pop t-shirt ads keep coming up for me on social media. And I like Iggy Pop a lot. Don't get me wrong. Punk rock godfather. I get it. But did Iggy Pop have a gold album?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely get it, and I'm just thinking, didn't I recently hear, um, was it Sammy Hagar saying that he was going to go out and do, yeah, he was going to go out and do a tour of like old material.
Oh yeah,
Um,
this summer he's playing the sheds or the amphitheaters of the US, a couple dozen of them. And the opening act is Loverboy, and his band is Jason Bonham, Satriani, and Michael Anthony. And
that's
they
it.
co-opted the
Yes,
Van Halen logo, and it's called the Best of All Worlds instead of the Van Hagar song Best of Both Worlds.
but
So he
didn't he
says
also put it out there that like David be welcome if he wanted to like come
he
along
said
and sing a
that
few tunes.
as empty Los Angeles bro, like, oh, dude, anyone, anytime, bro. What about Tuesday? I'm not available. Well, what about Thursday? I'm not available. I thought you
Or
said
yeah,
any.
but or alternatively, is Sammy smarter than that, and he knows damn fucking well Dave is never turning up, so he knows he can go. Oh, I'd love Dave to do this. Dave, come down. We want you on every show. Fucking do it, because he knows that's never happening.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Let's say Sammy Hagar changed his tune and went, Dave is welcome to any of these shows. Dave would then have to uh, get his stage gear. He'd have to have a sound man, a tour manager, his custom designed microphone. He'd have to fly himself out and pay for all of his hotel. So then Dave is suddenly on the hook for 5 to 50 grand a night because he doesn't do anything small time just to come up and sing 1 or 2 songs to prove that he's the voice of Van Halen. That's a lot of money and time spent just to win an argument, you know?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. But also, I just think that, like I said, I think Sammy Hagar putting it out there is kind of smart, because he knows there's no way Dave's going to do it. And
Yeah.
also, and what we heard from the Dave camp, it's like fucking crickets.
No, Dave said he would do it. And then Sammy then reneged on social media going, oh, no, I'm not doing that again. maybe he can come up for one song, and that was that. And one of Sammy's selling points for this tour is like, you never know who's going to come on stage and play with us.
You were right.
You
You're
go,
right. You're right. I don't know why I'd thought that. You're right. I remember seeing that now. I remember seeing it. Yes.
but
Yeah.
Sammy's one of those people who, look, I'm sure he's a lovely guy and he's generous. I'm sure it's great. Give me all the Sammy praise you want in the world. But he's one of those people who believes if he says something enough times, it's true. So when he goes around saying Van Halen sold more records with him than Roth, on no planet of logic is that correct. And when he says that Van Halen was playing half full arenas with roped off sections until the 1984 tour, again, not true. Like, why would you lie over and over and over again about things that can be proven? Here in the US, we have this thing called SoundScan, where you put in any
Yeah.
barcode, and in live time, it shows the number of albums sold. Sammy with Van Halen, I'm not aware of any album selling more than 6 million copies. With Dave, Van Halen had 2 albums that in the US alone sold over 10 million albums each. They're one of like 5 bands that have 2 diamond albums. If you have 2 albums that are 10 million apiece, that is 20. Show me how you sold more records
Yeah.
if you don't have one that sold over 6.
Yeah.
I'm not a good mathematician here,
Well,
but
yes, but the thing is, you're right. People don't dig into it. Sammy Hagar says that, and you say that to an interviewer. Well, as an interviewer, you've got to take it at face value because you don't, you haven't got the data to hand
right.
unless you're going to interview him and you're going to ask him that question because you have got the data to hand and you want to ambush him and basically say, well, actually, Sammy, that's bullshit because these are the sound scam figures and this is going to be the last interview I ever do with you anyway because you're going to be pissed off now, but turns out you're full of shit, so you probably should stop saying that.
Yeah, so there's all these lies that he tells, and also he was the person who spoke bad about the tour with Dave. He spoke bad about the tour with Eddie, the reunion tour in '04, about how bad Eddie was playing and how his teeth were rotten and he was impossible to deal with. Show me the interviews where Dave talked about how much he didn't like Sammy Hagar on the Sam and Dave tour and in the years since.
Yeah.
Show me where Dave has publicly badmouthed Sammy unprompted. So that's a unique thing about Dave, that for all these bad things that we're saying about the paranoia and the lack of focus, he's kind of taken the high road with just about everyone. Show me where Dave said, "Hey, Noel Monk, your book about Van Halen is totally untrue and filled with half truths." Where's the thing where he said, and Alex Van Halen won't talk to me because, oh no, that's Sammy. That's Sammy all the time saying,
Yeah.
Alex won't talk to me. So why are we conditioned to think that Sammy Hagar is this good guy if he's just leaving this road of jilted lovers aside from Michael Anthony? And Dave is tough to deal with, but he's not publicly shaming and bad mouthing everyone.
Yeah, I've always had the impression of Sammy Hagar that he's very much a kind of like I don't know, like he's in the wrong career. He should have been like a real estate agent, you know. He's just it's like he's a real estate agent with a guitar and a keyboard. And I mean I don't like his music. I don't like anything he did with Van Halen, and I don't like anything he's ever done, honestly.
I do, for the record, but I love your assessment of this. So you say as much as you want. I welcome.
I just yeah, I don't know, like I said, I've never really he's never come across to me as somebody who has any authenticity. I just always think there is a there's an agenda behind everything he says, and it's all just a bit empty, very much like his music.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing. I do like a good amount of the Van Hagar catalog. I do like some of his songs, but the detractors and the naysayers around Sammy are plentiful, including people who are in his band. And I don't know if he's another one of these non-disclosure kind of people. And That's why certain people have never said anything, but I respect his business acumen. It's incredible what he's done in the food and liquor spaces with spirits that aren't that great, to be honest. Um, Kudos to him on that.
Hang
And
on, can I just say we're talking about a musician, and I've just heard the phrase, kudos to him and things he's done in the liquor spaces. I mean, do you know what I mean? It's like
I
as a musician, you're a great fucking salesman, but
there are some
one of
people
those.
in the music space who have great drinks. And by the way, I like Sammy's canned cocktails. They're like hard seltzers that taste like soda. They're pretty good. But
Sammy's canned cocktails, ladies and gentlemen. You can pick them up at the store.
I think they're called SBBC, Sammy's Beach Bar cocktails.
God.
Okay, so I like those. I like
Yeah.
that DJ from Canada, Deadmau5, the Deadmau5 guy. His canned cocktails are great. It's coconut flavored vodka in a can, and they're great. Do I think he created the recipe? No, but he put his name on something that he liked or he helped curate, where he went, make it a little sweeter. Thank you. None of my money, right? Thank
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah.
I own part of it. Thank you.
But that's the but also there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I've been saying for a long time, people are like, oh fucking hell, Anthrax bringing out whiskey and all of this like moaning about bands bringing shit like that out, and it's like, well, they do that because you don't buy their fucking albums anymore, so you should stop fucking moaning.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are really hilarious. Like when Kiss comes out with cold gin, and you go like, none of them drink.
Yeah. Oh well, hello, Dave Mustaine, famously dry. Yeah,
Yeah,
bringing out, Megadeth beer. It's like, oh, this is the guy who's like really proud of being off the booze, and
Metallica too.
yeah,
James Hetfield was dry, then they came out the alcohol, and then he went back into treatment.
yeah,
So it could be a burden to do this, but Leonard Skinnerd and Billy Gibbons, all these people now have their own brand for better and for worse, and it's probably supplementing their income to some extent. I
yeah,
My opinion, and I can't prove this, but I think that Sammy's tour is to promote the liquor. And the reason why I say that is because you used to tour to sell the album, but the amount that you netted on the album is a tiny fraction of what you net on the bottle of one sale of booze.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if you like that brand of booze, you might buy a bottle every month or 2 months or 3 months or 6 months, that kind of a thing. And you keep buying it over and over and over again. You don't buy the same album twice unless it's going to a different format or you lose it. So then if you look at the amount of money they're going to do at the bar at a Sammy show, and the bar is going to have beach bar cocktails and Cabo Wabo and Santo. I think, I can't prove this, that this is part of a, hey, Live Nation, you should stock all of my liquor at
yeah,
every classic rock and country show for years to come. And so let's say Sammy's getting 200 grand a night in the guarantee. That's a drop in the bucket towards what this tour is supposed to be. Just a theory. I
yeah.
can't.
No, but I can well believe it. I can well believe it. You want sponsors involved with every tour that you do. You want to get you've got a number of bits of merchandise you can sell.
Yeah,
They may well be, the merch stall. There's going to be all the usual merch, shirts, and all the rest of it. But then, as Sammy's fan base gets older, he's probably got like some walking frames that will have logos on, and but there'll be everything, and I'll bet there'll be bottles of booze and stuff like that. And maybe for one night only, it'll be all his brand of booze is the only thing that you can buy in the show. There'll be
exactly.
and there'll be cups for the show as well. So, you can go and you can buy, you can buy a shot, or you can buy a cocktail, and you pay like $5 for it, or I don't know what numbers would be correct, but you buy $5 for this drink, or you pay $8 and you get this really cool limited edition cup
Yeah.
commemorating the night. And then next time you go to the bar, you can $5, or you can get the other limited edition cup for $8. And this is one of 5 cups that you can have, which is well, I've got to have all 5 cups, so I've got to have all 5 drinks. I've got to pay the extra money for all 5.
Yeah.
And this is something that's been going on, for at least 10-15 years in Europe, in arenas where, I mean, I remember going to see Rammstein 2010. And that was the first time that I saw, well, you can have a beer and it's like €6, or you can buy the beer and get a Rammstein and get it in a Rammstein cup, and
Hmm.
that's like €10, and there's 5 cups to collect. And
Wow. So to rudely interrupt you, Howard, if we can transcribe this conversation, take out all the bad things we said about Sammy's music and personal nature, and then just present this as the business plan, should we go 50-50 in terms of the revenue for selling it to him?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And if his management have got any connections to Ramstein, they're probably already doing it. Um, but
Yeah, I think so. What you're saying, I think, is where the future of touring is going, where they're going to try and make the money on the food, drink, parking, concessions, and then
in that,
also,
yeah, in that space, in that kind of, I mean, we're not talking like city halls and clubs and things like that. Although I can see it, creeping in slightly already. But yeah, I think those bigger shows, it's basically right. Okay, we've got these people for a night,
mhm.
so let's start making money. I mean, to go on a little bit of a tangent, the newest football stadium in London is the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium,
Mhm.
which is incredible. Now, in traditionally, um, for instance, the old Tottenham Stadium, which is virtually in the same place, you'd go to the area and you'd get something to eat from, like, a burger van nearby or whatever, and then you'd go into the local pubs and you'd have a few drinks, because the minute you go in the ground, you're
Yeah,
fucked.
yeah,
They're just gonna monetarily rape you every chance they get.
sure,
Okay. Um, and they built this huge new stadium, and they just went, well, there's a brewery in the stadium. I mean, none of the stuff that's there would surprise you because it's what's in American arenas.
yes,
Um, but they've got their own brewery. I mean, there's this big thing that, like, basically they serve pints, but they fill from the ground up. So, the beer doesn't go in, the beer comes up, which still does my brain in. Um,
yeah,
but
me too.
but basically they just went, why don't we just why don't we just price everything reasonably? And that way, people will come here as soon as they're in the area, and we just kill the competition. We
Mhm.
provide everything, and yeah, we put a little bit on top, but not so much as people are going to be, that's outrageous. People are actually going to be like, oh, that's not bad, because they're expecting it to be way more expensive, like in the old days. And
Yes,
what we actually do is we just run this thing as a business, and we actually, instead of just mugging people for a few hours, let's take their money all fucking day. And guess
all
what?
day, yeah,
They don't have to leave after the game. They can go into one of the restaurants. They can stay here till closing time at night, and we're still making money out of these people.
yeah,
And why don't we open during the week as well? Let's just make this like basically a mall with a sports field in it, you know?
genius,
And yeah, and that is, without doubt, that's the route to go down. Um, if you're in that position now, is basically, yeah, let's stop ripping people off for a few hours. I mean, you go to Wembley Stadium and it's horrific once you get in there, what you're getting charged for everything.
Right, right.
But they
So if I hear
regenerated the whole area around it. So that's a much better offer than it used to be.
if
So
I'm hearing you
yeah,
correctly, to rudely interrupt you here,
that's right.
you're saying that David Lee Roth should build a casino he performs at, and everything should be reasonably priced. So you spend all day there just to see David Lee Roth
You
play.
spend all day there.
Oh, trademark that while you can. All Dave and all
Yeah,
night.
all day and all night. Yeah.
Up all Dave. Oh.
Steady there, steady there. Don't get carried away. Yeah,
That
You can
team
stay
that
there
you
till
just
Dave break.
oh, that team that you just mentioned, it's funny that you just did because the average American would not know that team,
Yeah,
weirdly. They would just know
No,
Man U
yeah,
and
no, I absolutely get that.
Liverpool, that kind of a thing. But I've been on this kick of watching random Top of the Pops episodes that come up in my YouTube algorithm. And that team had like a top 10 single,
Yes, that's
like
right. Yeah,
81.
yeah.
What was
It was the FA Cup. By the way, you will know the stadium because there are NFL games. That's where the NFL games
Oh,
come from.
the
That is where the
London.
NFL. Yes, that's where the NFL games come from. They don't come from Wembley anymore. They come from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
Got it. Yeah,
The UK games, the London games are there at that stadium.
interesting that that goes there because professional wrestling, when it's big time, still goes to Wembley.
Yeah, yeah. I think it goes to Wembley Arena as opposed to stadium.
They
Or
did the stadium like
really?
6 months ago, and then they
Wow.
announced a follow-up show because the sales were so big. But I think it's because they were so starved for a stadium show that the
Yeah.
second time they do it, people are going to go like, "What? Why do I have to go to that again?"
Yes. Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, the fact that there's a regular NFL games in London is like crazy to me. It's just
Totally.
insane. But then again, given the amount of time that and distance that players have to travel, in the States anyway for a game, I guess it's not that mad.
No,
Um,
no.
but
New York to LA is like a 5 to 6 hour flight. So New York to London is a
about
five to
eight,
six hour flight. Same thing.
yeah, yeah, it's doable. Um, but yeah, it's still crazy. It's still crazy. I mean, I still remember, like, the London Monarchs and all of that, and you
Yeah.
know the great failure of trying to launch NFL over here.
Well, if
Um,
Phil Collins can get in that plane and play Live Aid in London and then
yes,
play
yeah,
Live Aid in Philadelphia and screw up a Led Zeppelin reunion, then anything is possible.
yeah, absolutely. I love that we have the same cultural touchstones as Goodfellas and that time Phil Collins ruined both Live Aids.
And now, as time goes on, I am more amazed by Phil Collins's voice, and
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm I think his voice is solid. I think it's amazing that teenagers and preteens liked Phil Collins because he
yeah,
looked old even
yeah.
in his peak.
But also, I think it's amazing that somebody who was a drummer and
Yeah,
that's all he was, and he never had any interest in anything but being a drummer. Suddenly, when he hit rock bottom, had the found the urge, or discovered that he had the urge to write songs, and they weren't shit.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
you know, and in fact, they were a long way from shit. Um, also, I remember as a kid, his that single "You Can't Hurry Love."
Yeah.
Um, I fucking loved it. I remember I absolutely loved that.
Was that the
Um,
music video that has the Ultimate Warrior in it?
no, I think he's
Oh, that's in Two Hearts.
yes, yeah, yeah. No. "Can't Hurry Love" is just like him in a suit, clicking his fingers, in a lit sort of, in a dark studio.
Got it.
Um, And of course, there's Against All Odds. While we're on our Phil Collins tip,
The
what a
Collins cast.
tune!
Yeah.
What a tune!
He, the voice is incredible. The hits are not too saccharine sweet. In the Air Tonight still holds up. It's not
Yeah.
sickening. Take Me Home still rules. It's more meaningful than it should be. It's great. Something Happened on the Way to Heaven. That's Genesis, right? But it was really Phil Collins.
I'm not sure. I'm not that sharp on Collins' oeuvre. By the way, it would be a Pete cast. Obviously.
One thing my wife makes fun of me every now and then for was I was just walking in Brooklyn to do an interview at this random film studio though that's in the middle of a bad neighborhood, but you're like, they're making movies here every day, but this is in a bad. So I was walking there, and this guy speeds by me on a city bike, like City, the finance company.
Yeah,
They for a while had all the bikes sponsored in New York City. He
yeah,
speeds by me, and I thought it was Phil Collins who rode past me. And that was a month or two before he found out that Phil Collins was sitting down to play and using a walker and just like not in good spinal health. So every now and then she'll be like, "Yeah, was that Phil Collins who just rode by us?" And I thought it was legitimately Phil Collins riding by me on a city bike. But
well, true story. About 2 weeks ago, I had that experience with a similar sponsored bike in London, and it was Eddie Izzard,
oh
or Susie Izzard, or whichever Izzard
yeah, I
is
don't know anymore.
it is
Yeah.
correct to refer to. Um,
The
but
legend, the Izzard legend.
Yes, yes. Although I was also lucky enough to go to the premiere of his new movie, Dr. Jekyll.
Nice.
And no, it wasn't. It was fucking shit, mate.
At least he's still making stuff, but yeah, I can
Oh,
imagine.
oh, without a doubt. Yeah, it's still a creative force. But yeah, well, it wasn't all that. And I don't know. I think he might be sidestepping his way into politics soon. Um,
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. So, hey, why
He
not?
sat next to me in Los Angeles at a Tony Clifton show, and there was like 40 people watching the show, and he was there on a random like Thursday, and he was blown away. And once I knew that he liked Tony Clifton like that, he just can't do anything wrong by me because
Yeah,
he
yeah.
has taste.
Well, I honestly, yeah, I'm a huge fan. I went to see him years ago while doing the definite article years, which was wonderful. It was in a theater, and he was absolutely brilliant.
Nice.
And a friend of mine knows him, and I got to sit in a tiny little room of 50 people while he tried out stuff for his next tour. We were sat right at the front. My friend had got us tickets and all the rest of it.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's just fantastic, absolutely fantastic. A wonderful comedy mind. Do you know what? We've gone so far. We've gone so far. Like this is like tangent beyond tangent now. We've done Phil Collins. We're on to Eddie Izzard.
Cast, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the Pete cast. This seems like the right time to call it a day before we start. Because we've hit some really nice seams of gold, and I
I
think
prefer the Lee Sklar bass playing in the Phil Collins band to the Nathan East. No, the bottom line is, Howard, you know your stuff, and
Oh,
I
thank
really
you. You
appreciate
do.
you tolerating my rants.
Oh, dude, I right back at you. And talk about knowing your stuff. I mean, that PI shit, man, that's a whole other episode. That really is. Oh, presumably it's not a whole other episode. It's a load of stuff that you can't talk about. But
Eh, as time goes on, the statute of limitations expires, and you can talk about stuff.
it does. It does. Have you ever seen the Doug Stanhope show that he had to wait for the statute of limitations in the
No,
state that he lives to pass before he could tell the story of how he helped kill his mother?
I have not seen that or heard that, and I need to because
It's yeah,
that guy
that's a
is
thing. That's a
that
real,
is a
real thing.
brilliant comic who's canceled and associated with Johnny Depp. which double cancels you, which I guess uncancels you if you've been double canceled.
Yeah.
But what a brilliant comedic mind.
Oh, he's absolutely incredible, and yeah, it's basically the story of the assisted suicide of his mother,
Well,
and
I need to tell the wife, and then she's going to make fun of me for the Phil Collins thing.
it's one of his it's one of his comedy specials. I don't know which one, but I'm sure if you Google that,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, the concept, you'll get pointed towards which one it is quite quickly.
cool.
And yeah, it's how he ends the show, and it's absolutely insane. But anyway, look, thank you so much for coming on, man. I've really enjoyed our time together, and
My pleasure. Likewise, and hopefully I'll have you on one of the various projects or schemes that I am involved with in the near future.
happy to anytime, man. Happy to anytime.
Thank you,
Um,
Howard.
my absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, man. Enjoy your day, and I'll let you know when it's coming out.
2 thumbs up, and I'll promote it when it's all out and all that.
Cool, brilliant. See you,
Cool.
man. Have a good
Have a
day.
great rest of the day. Take care.
Cheers.